To my right is Councillor Matt Martin, who is Vice Chair. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm goes off, it's the real thing. Just head out to those double doors through reception into King Square, should that happen. There are toilets in reception, should anyone need them. And there is water for members of the public, water to your right. Please put yourself should you want to. So this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that committee members are present in Bridgewater House and that the meeting is also available online via Teams. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. Can I remind all of those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silence? And can those joining us online please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed? I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are officers from our legal and democratic teams, and to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. On the wings of the table are the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format will be as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation. Councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the whole application will be able to vote. And the voting options are for, against, abstain and defer. Votes will be counted and the result announced. Before we go further into the main agenda for the meeting, I'd just like to welcome Zach Elwood, who is Interim Area Planning Manager. This is Zach's first committee, so welcome. I think all the other officers are familiar to us all. So we'll go straight into the committee to the agenda. And first of all, apologies for
we have Councillor Pauline here.
Thank you. Yeah, and everybody else is here. Agenda item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting, was the meeting in May. Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, I could just want a couple of quick comments. Bottom of page 13, top of page 14, where the declaration was for myself, Axbrew should have an E on it. But also, with my declaration, I also declared that it within my ward, I'd been the one who'd asked for it to come to committee, but I was coming to the meeting with an open mind, but that's not recorded in minutes. So if that could just be updated, that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Filmer. Given those amendments, can we all agree them as a correct record? Can I have a show of hands, please? And that's unanimous for all of those that were at the meeting. Thank you. Next, go on to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest. And can I ask Michael Jones, our legal advisor, just to give a summary of why we need to declare interest on application? Thank you.
It is a legal requirement for any member who has an interest in an item kind of discussion with the committee to declare an interest. However, there are 2 types of interest primarily. Those interests really that are inconsequential often arise from membership of another board, which is done on a honorary basis, for example, and declare an interest in that case. And it's, although it's declared as an interest of possible predisposition, provided the member maintains an open mind, then the member can declare that interest and can also vote and participate at the committee hearing. In contrast, you've got the concept of prejudicial interest, and that covers a case where a member of the committee approaches an item of discussion with a closed mind. In other words, he or she has decided on which way they're going to vote regardless. And often, if that interest relates to particularly of a pecuniary nature, an interest by reference to direct personal relationships, etc., then obviously that member must never take part in the debate, must not obviously vote and must actually leave the room while the debate is going on and can only return to the room when the vote has been taken. So that's putting it in a very simple nutshell. What I'm saying is something that is actually quite complex in law. So many cases on this subject, but don't be surprised if a member declares interest and continues to participate, because that will be a non-prejudicial interest. All members here must approach their tasks with an open mind and not with a closed mind.
Councillor Bradford.
That second one would apply to me then, Madam Chairman. And I did some 18 months ago when I saw this, but I did agree, but nothing's been put up on the portal regarding that. So really, in order of clarification, I don't probably leave the room, I think, maybe, or not.
I'm sure Mr. Jones will give.
I do not see that as a problem.
Okay, right here. Okay, thank you very much for clarification. Thank you.
Note.
Councillor, can you tell me which agenda item you're referring to?
Number one,
Number one,
North
the
Newton,
first one.
D Place North Newton.
I need to declare an interest on agenda item 6, the application of the Tower House as a member of Bridgewater Town Council. I haven't taken part in any meetings regarding Town Council meetings, but I do need to say I have made a site visit to Tower House purely to ascertain facts, not to offer any comments, support or otherwise. And I do come to this meeting with an open mind. Thank you. Councillor Smedley. Sorry.
The reason I had my hand up long before me, but now that you've said that, I need to also say, of course, I'm a town councillor, but I'm not on the town planning panel, which has already taken position. I haven't. And I did also make a site visit to Tower House, which is in my ward.
Councillor Bruce.
Usually I'm a member of the Parish Drainage Board, but I haven't been involved in any discussions on either of the items. Thank you.
Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a member of, this is for item 6, I'm a member of the Bridgewater Town Council, but I don't sit on the planning, nor have I entered into any discussion or anything about this application.
Thank you. So there's been no more declarations of interest. We go to agenda item 4, which is public question time. We have 3 members of the public that have registered to speak for over the 2 applications. I'll call you to the table once we've had the presentations for each application. Thank you. So that takes us straight on into the first planning application of the afternoon. That's the application for Monsell Road, North Newton, on pages 17 to 26 on your agendas. Liam, would you like to take us through the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application that's before you today is seconds, sorry, brothers. There we go. So the application before us today is a reserve matters application for the erection of one dwelling within the village of North Newton. The site was subject to an outline planning permission in 2024 for that one dwelling. All matters were reserved for subsequent approval except the access, and the access itself would utilise the existing access from the existing highway off of Monsell Road. Take you through to the next slide. So we'll just go through the main considerations. So we'll cover the principle of the development, the appearance, scale and layout, which is one of the reserve matters, the impact of residential amenity and ecology. So this is the application site highlighted on the highlighted by the circle on the plan there and by the red line by the submitted site plan. So the 2024 application showed a broad layout for what could be considered for the new dwelling. So the access would be located off of past Eastview here, and it would lead to, which leads to an existing hard standing area at the top of this raised area. The site itself is raised in comparison with the existing properties that front onto Monsell Road, where there is an existing boundary which separates this site from the residential personage of each of these properties here. So the outline planning permission showed a dwelling located within this area here. So if I go back to the screen here, so what we have in front of us is on the left hand side, we have the current layout plan for the proposed dwelling. Now, the dwelling itself will have an attached garage, which is located on the northwest corner there. And the access, as it was at the outline stage, will come through here, lead to the existing turning parking area with the access located in here. On the right hand side of the screen here, if I just move this out of the way, I've just provided the outline application indicative layout plan just to give you an idea of what was submitted as an illustration of what could be accommodated within the site at the time. This is with a note to the town council's comments during the course of the consultation for this application, where they were concerned over what was considered to be a difference between the outline and the reserve matters plans that you now have before you today. There is a change in the sense that there was a garage shown here, and this is now switched to the left-hand side and is a attached garage. But in the main, I think you can see that there is a general conformity with what was submitted at the outline stage in terms of the indicative layout plan, which was not binding at the time, but it just gives you an idea of what could be accommodated. And what is now submitted as reserve matters plan is, of course, the detail that we were looking for in the reserve matters submission. So in terms of the plans for the dwelling, here we have the proposed ground floor and first floor plans for the dwelling. So you have 5 bedrooms at first floor level, with a large open plan living, kitchen, dining area at the ground floor, and various other rooms, including sort of an office here and a utility of the proposed double garage at the front of the property there. You have a general open plan hallway, which is served by first floor windows on the front elevation of the property facing northwards, which are here. And this is the rear elevation. We have a Juliet balcony facing onto the rear paddock, which would be the residential curtilage of the proposed dwelling. The proposed external elevations will be brick and clay tiles with various positions for windows. As set out in the report, there was a condition on the outline consent which required no windows to be facing onto the east side of the property. As you can see, the left side elevation or the east elevation is devoid of any windows, so that would avoid any overlooking to the properties that face onto Walsall Road. These are some photographs of the existing site. So this is a view taken from the existing parking turning area that's shared with the adjoining properties. This is the paddock area where the dwelling would sit. So effectively, you would have front elevation facing towards this gate here, and access will come through here, and this would be the area where the dwelling would sit. This is a view taken from within the site facing towards the east, towards the properties on Walsall Road, which you can see in the background there. And again, this is roughly where the dwelling would sit within the curtilage that would be created. This is a view taken more centrally, looking back towards the west boundary. There are no properties in this direction. This is sort of the edge of the village, so you can see that there's a little more rural in this direction. But the existing hedgerows and trees that are located on this side would be unaffected by the development, given the size of the plot. And this is a view taken from the north boundary facing towards the north, just indicates the existing outbuildings that fall within this sort of parking and turning area here. And beyond that, you can see the existing properties more northwards of the site. And a couple more photographs. So again, this is a view taken from within the site towards the properties, the rear elevations of those on Walsall Road. And again, one more shot looking back from the northern boundary towards the site itself. So in terms of the actual size of the plots, it's considered that it's sufficient enough in size and scope to accommodate the dwelling of the size and scope that is being proposed now. The footprint of the building is quite large. That is something that you can see on the plans, but it's not considered that there'll be a significant impact on the amenity of any nearby property or any visual impact on the existing village itself. This is due to the setback position of the dwelling from the road, which, as you can see, is situated behind the existing properties. This is a view taken from Walsall Road, and this is a view taken from the access which will be used going down towards Monsall Road. And as you can see, the existing properties along the highway do provide a degree of screening from public vantage points. So it's not considered there'll be a significant visual impact as a result of the proposed dwelling. So in terms of the principle, the outline plan permission was granted in 2024. The property itself will be a self-built dwelling on the edge of a tier 4 settlement, which is compliant with our policy of self-built properties. The plan here just indicates the sort of distances we're talking about in terms of the facing elevations towards the existing properties. As you can see, there's a over 35-metre distance between the property here that's proposed and the existing properties to the north there. And likewise to the rear of the applicant's existing property, Eastviews, but the just over 30 metres, and those to the south as well. So there's a number so in terms of that is considered that there will be not a significant impact on the amenity of those properties through overshadowing, visual domination or overlooking. The windows have been sensitively sited away from the east elevation and would overlook mainly the existing curtilage that would be created for the dwelling. In terms of the size and design of the dwelling, it's not considered that it will be out of keeping with the surrounding area. There's a number of different types of residential properties, both large scale and smaller scale bungalows, and also of different eras. So you have late 19th century, possibly mid 20th century. The general vernacular of the area is quite varied, so the proposed dwelling and its design won't be out of keeping with that. And I've touched upon the residential amenity issue due to, like I say, the sensitive siting of the windows and on the external elevations. So in conclusion, it is felt that the proposed dwelling, the site for the proposed dwelling, while large, is sufficient enough to provide this sufficient level of amenity for the property, both in terms of its scale and space. As a result, it won't result in significant impact on surrounding residential properties or a visual impact on the character or appearance of North Newton as a whole. The access itself has already been established through the outline planning permission, and due to the single dwelling that's been proposed, there shouldn't be a significant impact on highway safety, although that was considered at the outline stage. In terms of an update to the recommendation, there is a condition that's to be added if planning permission is approved, which talks about the optional requirements under Part G of the building regulations in terms of water consumption and sustainability. And yes, if approved, this would be added to the recommendation. So the recommendation is to grant permission for the reserve matters proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. One speaker on this item, and that is Paul Herbert from North Petherton Town Council. Can I invite you to the table, please? You'll have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer.
Madam Chairman. Madam Chair, members, officers, I'm here today to reinforce North Petherton Town Council's position and objection to this application. As it stands, we must state we are not against the principle of the development per se. However, we maintain our concerns with regards to the variances from the outline application and this application. The original concerns by neighbours of overlooking seem to have been largely addressed at outline stage with a considered approach to separation distance created by the positioning of the large garage. Yet at the detail stage, today we find ourselves with the garage being now diametrically opposite to its outline position. Is it not the case that when outline has been agreed, no significant changes at the detailed stage should occur? North Petherton Town Council are of the opinion this is a significant change. We would refer you to drawing 1027/3 at outline and drawing P1-3 at detail, which supports our concern. This change has clearly moved the main residence back closer to the neighbouring properties. Why do this? If it was kept as it was at outline, we wouldn't be here today. Therefore, North Petherton still differ to the offerer's recommendation and cannot accept it is broadly similar and that there is no increased impact on the neighbouring properties. This is an important factor when considering until details were recently submitted, no one knew the size of this building. It is extremely large in height, 8.45 metres, the norm being normally 7 metres, and given it sitting on an elevated position, thus exacerbating the above concerns, with first floor windows overlooking other properties. We also note the suggested method of controlling the surface water runoff by the use of an underground soakaway with containment, a SUDS. And yet this water must eventually go somewhere. So with this in mind, North Heatherton have been recently advised by the Drainage Board member for Fordgate and Northmore Pumping Station that they are witnessing increases in water levels and at times overwhelming. This partly due, in his opinion, to continued developments in North Heatherton and surrounding areas. It appears the SUDS designs of 10 years ago are not performing as projected, and yet many applications depend on this method of management. So if we're to continue with development, please get the Water Management Act together, or we will see more of 2013-14 incidences occurring on this basis. Thank you for listening.
Lynn, would you like to respond to the issues that have been raised, please?
Yes, the dimensions of the dwelling are set out in paragraph 4.2. So the dwelling itself is quite large, but from a planning perspective, it's considered that it wouldn't be an overdevelopment of the site given the size of the plot that we're dealing with. In reference to the outline planning permission, I mean, yes, there has been a change from the indicative site plan that's provided the outline application, which you can see on the screen now. It has to be said that the only actual matter that was approved at that time was the access. So while it is sometimes helpful for an applicant to provide indicative details of what a dwelling could look like in terms of its layout, it isn't binding at that stage unless we're dealing with the layout, scale and appearance, which we are now dealing with. So while it is a deviation from what was indicated at the time of the outline consent, that plan was only provided in an illustrative manner. So what we are dealing with now is the confirmation of what the dwelling will look like, where it will be within the plot, where the windows will be, what materials it will use. So there is that two-stage approach to outline and reserve matters proposals. But in terms of the broad parameters, the only way that an outline or the only way a reserve matters application would differ from an outline so significantly that it wouldn't actually be compliant with that original permission would be if it fell outside the red line area that was given at that time. So the red line is indicated and is consistent with that which was provided at the outline stage. Everything else is just purely illustrative. And we are now dealing with confirmation of what the dwelling will be in terms of its layout, scale, appearance and design. So while I appreciate where the town council is coming from in terms of the feeling they provided with one plan to only have another come in that's different from that, as the plot is actually within the red line area that was approved at the time, technically it is still compliant with the outline consent. So yeah, that's the reason why. I mean, that's the reason why they can move the garage and make the plot, the footprint slightly larger than it previously indicated.
There was the matter of the surface water runoff as well.
Yes, I mean, the details that have been provided at this stage of the planning application indicate that there would be some soakaway design to the scheme. And as noted, there would be the site itself is within flood zone 1, so it's not in a high risk flood zone as such that would result in significant impact from flooding. However, yes, I do appreciate that if there is a cumulative impact in the general area towards surface water issues, it's not considered that this dwelling in of itself would create a significant impact, but I appreciate that there would be other means with which to manage that, and one of those would be through building control based upon the fact that this is a single dwelling, so it's quite a small scale development.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things about that. But first couple of questions is to do with papers we've got. I noticed on these that we've got, normally there's an application date on the form that's disappeared, and we've now got something called the extension of time, which is indicated, just wondered why that had changed. The other question in terms of papers is the reason for it coming to us is because apparently the divisional councillor thinks our policy D25 is subjective. And that's the only reason. So are we saying that every application that's subject to policy D25 potentially can be called to committee because that's a subjective policy? That seems a very broad brush. Coming to the application itself. Looking at the two plans we've got in front of us on the page, the original indicative shows access to the garage, shows the drive, shows landscaping. The current reserve matters, which you'd expect to have a bit more detail on it, seems more like an outline plan. Because it shows nothing in terms of how you're getting access to this garage. We've heard potentially there's overlooking neighbours. Well, if that's the case, that's got to be the front windows. So on the plan, it's just disappeared. There were buildings or something in front of it. Are those properties that are being overlooked, or are the properties only to the roadside of it? So I'm just struggling a little bit to get my bearings, because I say that I don't think the plan that's the reserve matter seems to be particularly clear.
Yes, so the detailed drawing we have in front of us, so the left-hand side is the ground floor plan, the right-hand side is the first floor plan. So this would be north facing, so we have one bedroom window, one sort of a landing window. So
We're not seeing your marker.
oh yeah, sorry, I have to move it, don't make it. So we've got the bedroom here, the hallway with the window there, which is suspended above the sort of foyer area in the front, and a couple of bathroom windows here, one for an ensuite and one for a main bathroom here. So these windows would be facing northwards, and these are the outbuildings that you can see in the photograph here. Oh, sorry. With the nearest dwellings located further north there. So on the plan here, I've just indicated some distances between the closest habitable dwellings and the dwelling itself, which the north elevation, like I said, the nearest, you've got the bedroom window here. So you would say that that would be the closest point from which overlooking could occur to this property, just out of shot of this plan here. And that's a distance of approximately 38 meters. So well above what we consider to be our 20-meter sort of minimum distance. The east elevation here has no windows, but I've just sort of provided that distance just so we can see to the back of the nearest properties there in terms of sort of separations, 32.3 meters, so just over 32 meters. And then again, another 32-meter distance between the closest corner here and the properties down here. Now, you do have a number of bedroom windows on the first floor here, which would face onto the rear curtilage that would be created for the dwelling. But again, you've got a sort of a substantial distance between those windows and the nearest properties and their rear elevations here. Not just that, but also it's got a significant distance between the dwelling and the shared boundary. So it's considered on that basis that there would be a significant impact on residential amenity from an overlooking point of view.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to clear up the talk about the water, shall we start with? I think I know what I'm talking about. But you see a property there called Westlands. The plan, Westlands. My mum and dad lived there for 20 years. To look over through the hedges and look into this site, there's some of the driest ground ever you're likely to find. I can't see any issue regarding flooding or soakways or anything else, to be perfectly honest with you. If that was a flood there or get a water problem, it's just natural red sand and soakaway. It's just natural and it works wonderfully well. I do say the garage had been moved to the other side. Well, I suppose in one respect, that would be a good thing because I don't think we see any letters of objection, have we? I remember this 18 months ago, and it was 18 months ago, and I looked at it
Lynn, would you like to confirm how many letters of reflection there have been?
But yeah, paragraph 7.3 just confirms there are two representations that were received, and we've summarised the concerns raised below in the table there. So it was mainly to do with overlooking, overbearing, and noise and disturbance. So those were the comments that we received during the course of the application.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. We went a period of a year when nobody said it, actually. I think it's been going on now probably 18 months, I would imagine, the time to put out for consultation, everything else, and nobody had anything to say until about 3 or 4 months ago. Then I think one of our local councillors spoke to one of the residents, and that was the reason why North Heatherton Town Council quite rightly brought this forward today, when Councillor Herbert spoke elegantly on everything that was decided on that. Okay, so I know the site, I know the area, I know the drainage, the access, road, no problem. At most villages, it's a lot bigger than what it used to be. And the applicant lives on the, as you go out onto Mount, he lives on the right hand side. If you go down actually, he needs to be at Cell. The applicant lives there at Cell. That's more information for you, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Any further comments? Liam, can you bring up the final slides with the additional condition, please? So that we're all familiar with the addition.
So yes, the additional condition is this text here. So it talks about no individual dwelling hereby approved shall be occupied until the optional requirement for potential consumption of wholesome water by persons occupying that dwelling in Part G of Schedule 1 per day has been complied with. And it's basically to comply with the council's policy S5 in relation to sustainability and water efficiency.
Thank you. So if there's no further comments, I'll be looking for a recommendation. Councillor Grimes and then Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't see anywhere to go on this. I don't have a problem with this application. So I'm happy to move the recommendation with the condition as stated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. I've gone through all this paperwork at some length. I've read everything back to front. I do not have any problem with this whatsoever. And I'm happy to second Councillor Grimes.
Thank you. So we have Councillor Grimes proposing, Councillor Hendry seconding to approve the application as per the officer's recommendation with the additional condition. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. Yeah, that is unanimous. Thank you. So now we go on to the second application of the afternoon, and that's agenda item 6 on pages 27 to 44. And this is the application for Tower House, 27 London Road, Bridgewater. And Liam, I think that is you again, isn't it?
Thank you.
So this application is for a variation of a condition attached to a planning permission for the change of use of a former guest house into a 8-bed HMO. The condition was condition 5, which specifically related to the management plan that the applicants had provided at the time of the previous consent, which was part of that permission, and we're here today to assess a proposal to vary that condition and in terms of that management plan. So in terms of the previous consent, so we're dealing with 27 Wemden Road in Bridgewater, which is just outside the town centre. The site itself was previously a 7-bed guest house, which was then granted consent by the Development Committee to be converted into an 8-bed HMO for an applicant who provides accommodation for homeless people. As part of the consent, it was conditioned that the HMO would have on-site staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in order to provide supervision for the occupants of that particular of the property, and also be supplemented by CCTV. Due to a change of circumstances for the applicants in respect of who would potentially occupy the HMO, the applicants are now proposing to reduce the on-site staff presence to just during the week, and weekends and evenings will be monitored by CCTV by the applicants. This has come about due to the occupants potentially having lower support needs, which would therefore negate the need for an on-site presence 24/7. So the site itself is located here, indicated by the red marker on the aerial photograph, is accessed from Wemden Road. There were minor alterations to the site itself as part of the previous planning permission, in terms of providing on-site storage for bin storage and bikes. And there was a parking area to the rear of the property, all of which would remain as is. There are no physical alterations to the site as proposed by this current proposal. We're merely looking at the changes to the management plan that the applicants would look to implement. So this is a photograph of the existing property. So you can see it's mainly in a residential area. It was deemed at the time that a HMO use would be appropriate for the location, given that it is a predominantly residential area. There is a school access to the right-hand side, which was highlighted at the time of the previous application, and has again been highlighted as a possible concern. And this leads to Westover Green Primary School, which is also access to some other special educational facilities that form part of the school site as well. This is accessed off Wemden Road, where there is just out shots here. You have a pedestrian crossing, which is frequently used during the school drop-off and pick-up times. So, in terms of the principle, the site itself has established itself as a 8-bed HMO. The proposed modifications to the condition would see the HMO still have staff presence provided by the applicants throughout the week, but as I said, evenings and weekends will be monitored by CCTV. It's considered that due to the changed circumstances, this was necessary as the potential occupants would have lower support needs, and therefore they could be accommodated within the property while also having the property temporarily unstaffed during those hours, which, like I said, revolve around evenings and weekends. As I said, there are no physical alterations to the building, so there would be no increase in the impact on residential amenities through the planning use of the property. There would still be 8 residents in situ, as was previously approved, and the building itself would not alter, or the site itself would not have any changes to it. So in terms of actual planning alterations, there won't be any as proposed by this current application. As I've said, the property itself would remain as a residential use within what is a predominantly residential area. However, we have had a number of concerns raised by members of the public and the town council, as well as the police liaison officer for the area in respect of potential impact through antisocial behaviour within the area due to the reduction in on-site presence of staff during the course of the week. Which are noted within the report and highlighted and summarised within the section that talks about the concerns and the responses that we've received during the course of the planning application. In terms of what we can assess as part of the proposal, the actual use will remain as has been approved previously. And we are purely looking at the change to the circumstances or change to the applicant's management of the property, as I've said, through the on-site presence of staff during the week. So this has raised concerns over the behaviour of future occupants, which could lead to the fear of crime and disruption within the area. However, as pointed out within the report, it is considered these potential issues of antisocial behaviour cannot be readily influenced by planning legislation in what we can assess as part of a planning proposal. There would still be an on-site presence for members, for occupants of the property, but ultimately this would be influenced and governed by forces outside of the local planning authority's remit, such as the police or the agencies involved in terms of the occupants' ongoing care and supervision while they're staying at the property. So it's quite a difficult one from a planning perspective to really provide any sort of significant influence through what we can assess at this time through this variation of planning condition application. Ultimately, the applicants are looking to provide on-site care for those who have found themselves homeless. And while that has raised concerns in the public eye regarding impacts through antisocial behaviour, we are duty bound under the public sector equality duty to have regard to those who may be subject to discrimination. And in this case, it is felt that the management that is being proposed by the applicant doesn't provide any planning related issues that we can influence as a planning authority or significantly impact the planning impact or the amenity impact that the HMO would have on the surrounding area. Well, it is noted that the site itself is within proximity of a primary school and other educational buildings that are used by the community. Again, it's not felt that we, through this planning application, can significantly impact that where there will be where we could condition or influence it through planning policy. It should be noted that through the previous application, the applicants were required to obtain certification through the Secure by Design accreditation provided by the police, which has been done. That was a condition of the previous consent. And it is felt that within the remit of what has been provided in terms of this planning application, that the applicants are still looking to provide on-site supervision, which would in some respects go above and beyond what you would typically find within a residential use or a HMO use for that matter, with regards to the on-site supervision of the potential occupants of the property. It would still be monitored by CCTV, and while there would not be a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week presence, it's considered the proposal submitted by the applicant will be proportionate to the scale of the development and the operation of the HMO as a whole. As such, it is considered on the basis of the plans submitted and the details that the applicants have provided, while also taking into account all of the concerns that have been raised during the course of this planning application, that the development would still be acceptable in this location. The site is in a sustainable position within the town centre, would have access to existing services and facilities, but would also provide on-site staff presence and be monitored by CCTV when that staffing presence is not available. Therefore, it's considered on the planning balance that the proposal is compliant with our policies S2 and D25 of the local plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have two speakers on this item. And firstly, can I invite Sophie Kemp to come to the table, please? So you have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer.
I'm here speaking to you on behalf of the local community. Whilst we fully support the applicant's mission, we feel this variation, should it be commissioned, will cause significant distress and fear of crime within the community. It is impossible to get across our sentiment in the allocated time. Therefore, I would simply like to pose those of you voting today some questions. Have each and every one of you read each and every one of the hundreds of objections to this variation and this original submission? Have each one of you read in full the community evidence pack that was provided by the community with the first application? Do you understand that the applicant has actually made no commitment to continuously staff the property during weekday hours? Merely a statement that says trained staff will attend. That is different to being there. Do you understand what low risk looks like? We don't. We asked and they refused to provide this definition. The revised plan merely states no referrals will be made for those deemed high risk from an offending perspective. This does not, in our opinion, equal low risk. Are you aware that the weekend and out of hours response times that have been committed to? We aren't. We have not been provided this. Do you fully understand the applicant's risk? They refuse to share this with us. Are you aware of the management issues and causes behind other incidents at the property managed by the applicant, notably Dampier Street and Lindley House? Do you understand the risk likely associated with this application for the children of the primary school, SEND Centre and nursery? Have you been in person for the development to view the access and egress arrangements and immediate proximity to the school environment? So I ask you this, how can you in good conscience support this application with all the unknowns when police have risk assessed at length and objected, not once but twice, based on, and I quote, providing no evidence that the risk has reduced? When Ashley Fox, MP for this constituency, has formally objected, when the town council has objected. In summary, we believe that the current proposal is significantly less conducive to a secure and safe environment for the local community and as such should not be commissioned. If you cannot answer yes to our questions with confidence, then you should not be voting on this application today. If you believe in supporting your local electorate who elected you, in supporting the public services who are already at breaking point, then you must vote against this application. Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you. Can I now call Paul Richards, please, to the table? So you have 3 minutes. Please let us know when you're ready to start and we'll start the timer. It's on, yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Paul Richards and I'm the Chief Executive of ARC. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to support our application, but also to acknowledge the level of concern expressed by the community about both the original application and this change. ARC is a homeless services provider. We have 168 bed spaces in 16 properties across the area. It also provides outreach services for rough sleepers, targeted support and prevention services. Last year across Somerset, an average of 119 people slept rough every single night. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are over 600 alive homeless cases and over 300 people living in temporary accommodation, many more so for surfing and living with friends and family. Homeless people don't just need accommodation, they need help, support to overcome mental, physical health issues, financial inequality and problems such as substance abuse. Tower House was conceived to provide exactly this sort of solution in Bridgewater, where this is a growing solution. growing issue. The original planning application was to house individuals with highly complex needs, requiring extra support and greater risk management. Planning permission was granted. There was 5 conditions, 4 of those have been met. The one that isn't is the outstanding condition relating to the management plan. And that's not been put in place because in conjunction with Somerset Council, the plan used for this property has now changed due to the need, location and internal configuration. It is now proposed to house low need individuals and not requiring 24-hour support. People living there will be capable of independent living. They may well be vulnerable adults. Some may well be working. Many will be on waiting lists for social housing, simply waiting to move on. Everyone will be supported by a dedicated support worker who will visit on a regular basis. Our outreach teams and other support workers serving Bridgewater will also operate from Tower House. The site will be constantly monitored by ARC staff and dedicated security staff using CCTV. Team members will attend quickly when needed. ARC staff will go on call 24/7 hours, a proven model that works well in 4 other locations across Bridgewater. I believe this responds directly to the police objections noted, and we will continue to collaborate closely with them and all the other authorities to monitor and address any antisocial behaviour. When needed, we can quickly remove individuals not adhering to the agreed code of conduct. We do want to work positively with the community, ensure that local people get a chance to meet our team, the residents, and to help make Tower House an integrated and welcomed part of the community. Tower House will make a huge difference to those living there, help reduce rough sleeping and reduce the use of unsuitable temporary accommodation. I therefore request that the committee supports this change and our ongoing work to make Tower House a key part of the Bridgewater community.
Before we go into debate, is there anything at all that Liam you'd like to respond to? No. Okay, so we're going straight into debate. Councillor Martin and Councillor Hendry. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to both our speakers. I just wanted to review something that I seem to say quite a lot nowadays, and that is that we are under quite tight restrictions as a planning board. I understand the emotive arguments for this application and most arguments on both sides, but we are bound by sets of rules and we don't get to choose whether or not we abide by those rules or not. The discussion that's going to take place in a moment, probably with me, will be on planning grounds only and what are called material considerations. So I just ask you to bear that in mind. This isn't something that we decide on an emotive matter. Just clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. Just by coincidence, I actually owned and run one of these places in Burnham-on-Sea for a few years. And if my memory serves me right, we had occupants come by ARC at that time. Not a lot, but we did have them. I do recall that. It started off thinking, yeah, it's fine, yeah, we can do this, one thing or another, all good, but it's not. And I don't want to be specific against any particular person, I would never do that. But we have problems every single week. I mean, it was the same side of the property. We had the police there, social workers to be on call. It's not something I would ever undertake ever to do again, but we did it at that time for reasons that don't really matter. But the problems are much, much more than even our speakers here that could actually talk about it, because I know what the standard is all about. And it's not something I would ever take on again. Moving on from that just for a second, this about the school and the school children, etc. That doesn't sit right with me at all. Far too close. It's not my decision. Councillor Martin, yeah, I know policy, etc. Of course, we do know that as well. But sometimes in reality, you have to look at it from both angles, whether it's just policy driven or the reality. And the reality is that this place is far too close to be school children. And as I just pointed out before, I'm not just school children, it's the actual fact that you don't realise what you're getting with these people with the problems until it's sat right in front of you. And I would never do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Slocum?
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's very difficult actually that we all know there's policies and we all know but this is an emotive subject, and I think risk averse. I think we have to be. And I'm a little bit concerned about their locality, in line with the school. The other thing I would like to ask is, first, I'd like to reserve the right to come back if I may, is that much of this document refers to Sedgemoor District Council. On page 37 and onwards, it says Sedgemoor District Council. Now, I would have thought the legality of this was we should have been saying Sedgemoor North. And I realise it's probably been copy and pasted because it was a previous application. But legally, I would just like to ask, is this legal when it's referring to not just only Sedgemoor, it's actually saying Sedgemoor District Council?
Thank you, Alison, about that one. It's Sedgemoor is mentioned in the report, plus in the management plan as well.
On many pages, many pages.
Oh, sorry. So the application was received, the original application was received at the time when we were Sedgemoor District Council. So there will probably be some there will be some references to the old authority name. But that's what was attached to the previous application. Obviously, we're dealing with a new set of a new planning application, which I guess would have to refer to the updated Somerset Council.
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry, please forgive me, I don't think that's legal at all. I don't think that we've been a unitary now for over 2 years. And I think when we are copying and pasting evidence that was first published as within Sedgemoor District Council, we should be now changing this to look at it now in the new light of the new council of Sedgemoor North, Somerset North. As much as we'd like to keep SDC, we haven't. So I just feel that there's a bit of legality here that really needs to be looked at.
Can I ask our legal officer to comment on this, please? Because it is a legal question, isn't it?
It's very interesting to have a discussion and debate over the history of what happened in the previous development and how this authority absorbs its issues. But the point is that we're trying to deal with a specific planning application. And a number of the issues to which you refer are somewhat distant from the points you need to consider now. We're faced with the current policy framework. We're faced with what are material planning considerations. And as you've heard from the planning officer already, the issues of primary concern to local residents, unfortunately, are not covered by the planning legislation directly. There are other public agencies that are involved in dealing with this matter, not least of whom will be the local police force. So I think it's better to bring the debate back to how to make a decision on this particular application and take into account all the concerns, basically based on what it is to be alleged poor management or indeed alleged bad behaviour by some inmates.
Can I just say, when you do an application, a planning application, you should be doing it through the right authority. My argument is, and my point is, that we are not Sedgemoor District Council anymore. And legally, you could be saying that we gave planning they gave planning outline planning approval last time, and now Sedgemoor is still waste. What I'm saying is, I certainly, I really apologise. I don't agree. I do not agree, and I think that disappoints me.
And can I just? It's been pointed out to me that paragraphs 9, 91, 92 acknowledge the change in from Sedgemoor District Council and their pre-existing development plans of formal local areas. Remain and adopted local plans within Somerset Council in planning. So it's saying that the planning north area of Somerset Council, the adopted plan is therefore sort of replaces the Sedgemoor local plan. So that those points are actually acknowledged in paragraphs 9, 9.1, 9.2.
We have inherited all of the issues they've dealt with, and we have to deal with them as the new authority.
Councillor Filmer.
Thank you. I think as other members have said, this is not an easy application because we've got we had this before, and we have granted permission previously for an 8-bed HMO, so that is in place. But to be honest, at the time, a lot of weight was given to the management plan that was going to be in place and the people who were going to be on site to make sure that things were dealt with immediately if something happened. Looking at the paragraph 4.7, where it talks about the security and monitoring activities will be continuously covered through CCTV. If no one is on site, who makes sure that CCTV is operational and not put out of action? We heard from one of the speakers that things would be responded to quickly. Quickly is doing a lot of work. What does quickly mean? There's an awful lot that can happen by the time that someone arrives. Secure by design has been obtained, and so the police are supportive and they tick that box. But then we have another police response, which is saying they object. So I'm a little confused as to what the weight is of those two particular views of the police and where that puts us. I'm struggling at the moment because as I say, we have an existing permission. I can understand a lot of the comments that we made by officers. If I'm to support this, I need some more information as to why I can support it. But equally, if I'm going to go against it, I need good planning reasons to go against it. At the moment, I'm struggling to find those. So I am very much open to hearing the debate, and I'm hoping that someone is going to enlighten us all.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'm afraid to say, obviously, the weights to be attached to both those responses, as I'm sure you probably understand, is for you as the decision-making body. Obviously, we're listening to the debate and understand the sensitivities of this. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what members discuss.
I think it'd be useful at this point if there's any further comment that can be made about the police response as it has been raised. Because the secure by design was implemented as a result of the previous application. This is a different application. Are you able to give any?
I think so. The secured by design is a means with which the applicants can obtain an accreditation by the police in terms of the security of the building. Now, that's limited to the physical alterations that they can make to secure the building itself. It doesn't refer to the potential occupants of the property. So that's where we have the maybe discrepancy between the two, obtaining the secured by design accreditation, but also receiving an objection from the police in the sense of they've looked at the potential for antisocial behaviour increasing in the area, which is not within their interests, I guess. While we in our report said that we can't influence that through the planning sphere in the sense of securing the site, making physical alterations to the site to prevent antisocial behaviour, the fear of crime, they have come back to us and said, well, if they reduce their on-site presence, there's going to inevitably be an antisocial behaviour issue. From a planning perspective, we can't necessarily influence that through planning policy. We have a planning policy about residential community and D2, appropriate design and scale of development, etc. But that's where we have maybe the imbalance between two competing opinions from one source.
Yes, thank you. Just for clarification, and thank you to Liam for that. I think the point is that secured by design was a requirement that they met the tests from that. What the police are now raising concerns about is the change to the management plan. And obviously the change is what we're here to consider, what members are here to consider today. I would mention that the intention is not to delete the management plan in its entirety. It's only related to the 24-hour 7-day presence, and that the rest of the management plan would remain in place under new condition 4 as proposed to be reimposed. So the question is, does that remove of that particular clause in the management plan, is that so significant as to raise these concerns, that it's justified to refuse, and that any refusal reason that we did put forward as a council is defendable on an appeal. It's a difficult one. I agree.
Well, councillor Bolt, councillor Bradford, councillor Smedley, and then I will councillor Hendry.
Thank you. We've got the police liaison as is making quite what I believe is relevant remarks with regards that they've not provided any evidence to suggest the risk is reduced to support the proposed reduction of staffing. And we've got the speaker in support saying that substance abuse and other issues are growing in the area. There's nothing to say in my mind, but it's saying that there's less risk than when the original section 5 was put on, condition 5, sorry, was put on, to say that they can take somebody away. It's the immediate intervention, which is obviously what everybody's concerned about. The police are quite specific there in what they're saying.
Thank you, councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find this one quite difficult, actually, to keep the debate interesting. I have visited one of these art places at Taunton near Cricket Ground. I knew a gentleman who was down on his luck. He was discharged from a mental health place. He had nowhere to go, and he ended up in here. And if I could write a book, I would, of what I experienced on 2 visits to the art place in the Cricket Ground at Taunton, right? That makes it very interesting. It just a real insight to the problems that some people have, and they've got nowhere to go with these issues, etc., and they're all put in, mixing up together and what have you, male, female, etc. And it quite upset me actually to experience what I'd experienced, and I can talk about it because I've seen it. Okay, so to keep it interesting, but I do find it very difficult, this one. I just got an awful feeling it's the wrong place. I just got an awful feeling of it. I know these people have to be rehabilitated, they have to start their lives somewhere, but they're a gentleman there that day, just been discharged from prison. Right? And it was a strong fellow. I wouldn't like to tell him, but that's how it was. But my experience, I'm passing on to you, because one thing you can't take away from people is experience, right? And that's one I have experienced. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Smedley.
So this is a difficult vote to come to. Clearly, the residents' concerns are justified, and they haven't been addressed in full. Some of the things Mrs. Kemp said could have been addressed in the follow-up speech. I wish they were. The difficulty for us is it's already got, as Councillor Filmer said, planning permission for what it is. So if you vote against this change now, which means they say lower risk people are there with slightly less cover, as you vote against that, it just goes back to what they had previously, which is probably a worse condition for the residents. Problem is whether we believe or not that there isn't much difference between low and high. That's the concern, isn't it? So it's quite an important decision how we feel best to take this forward. There's things there. It has to be on planning planning considerations. Everybody has talked about the genuine concern for the higher levels all around the town at the moment of not just ASB, but also homelessness, all the related things which do need a solution. They need a solution in the right place with the right backup measures in place as well. The town council's objected. They do object to every HMO in the town, so that's slightly reduces their case because it's not strictly speaking the same type of HMO, but there's a proliferation of HMOs around the town, which is clearly a problem as well. And the police have objected largely on the basis of the crime rate on their beat, but that beat includes other places which we know of in the town, which are much worse situated. They've been mentioned today in the reports, with much greater instance of ASP anti-social and other issues. So we have to take a judgment, but ideally with a bit more information, which I don't know whether we're going to get today, about the difference between high and low risk in there, and whether it's better to support that slight change to allow possibly low risk people coming in there, or whether to reject it, which puts it back to the planning permission they've got, which keeps it at potentially high risk. That's the consideration. I'd like to hear a bit more debate about that around the room, and information which addresses maybe some of Mrs. Kemp's concerns from earlier.
Thank you. Planning officer, have you anything you'd like to respond at this point to Councillor Smedley's points?
I'd only say that the fallback position, if permission was not granted today for the variation of condition, would mean that the applicants would have a consent that requires them to provide an on-site presence 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't influence the personnel who would be occupying the development. So while you say that they could go back to a high risk individual, that's not something we can control. That's not something we have an influence over, like we don't with any other planning application. We cannot influence individuals who would occupy a development. That's the difficulty that we have in a planning recommendation, is that we cannot say to someone, that's who you put in that accommodation. All we can do is try and manage the development in such a way that it complies with planning policies. So yes, you know, I take the point, but I mean, for example, you know, the government have expanded the ability for people to convert dwellings into HMOs for 6 more people that don't require planning permission. So we have a very limited influence over this one, in the sense that it's only because it's 8 individuals and the original uses for a guest house that we're debating it as a planning application. We were at the previous time 3 years ago. So we can't, through planning conditions or through the assessment of planning policy, influence who the applicants put in their accommodation. Like we can't influence who is accommodated within a dwelling or a flat or any form of accommodation that we're asked to actually approve or refuse. So I would just bear that in mind, if I could, just in terms of if there's any further questions.
Well, I'd like to come in here, because that's an interesting point for me, because on condition 4 of the recommendations, it says that the development hereby permitted shall be operated and managed in accordance with details set out within the Tower House Summary Management Plan, revised 19th February this year. Within that management plan, on paragraph 2.6, it says that, because we're coming down to the nub of concerns, I think now, Tower House will not house sex offenders. No referrals will be made to those deemed to be high risk. Are you now saying that the management plan is a condition within these recommendations, but as you just said, whatever we agree here today, we can't control the conditions within that management plan, which is, I understood that was that could be enforced. So I'm rather confused now. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to jump in and steal Liam's thunder, but I think what he was saying is you can't decide on individuals, but this condition, if were imposed, so if members were to grant permission for section 73, it would grant new permission, and that condition would apply. So the terms of that management plan would apply, and it would preclude certain types of people from that. I think the more interesting thing is that, say ARC were to say we can't run it anymore because of that requirement, they could, the permission goes with the land, not with the applicants. So that is still going to be an HMO, but could be used for an HMO for up to 8 people. And if someone else took it over, say I took it over, I want to just let it out to landlord, the council would have no control over who went into there, because I would have to apply for a removal of that condition because it no longer applies to my business. And then you have no control. I think the one thing that this does give the council some certainty about is there is a known end user in terms of the sort of overall management. Whilst there wouldn't be the 24-hour, 7-day a week presence on most HMOs, you'll find across the country, there wouldn't be a management plan at all that is tied to the planning permission. So the simple answer, sorry if I've gone a bit long-winded, but the simple answer is yes, if members approve this section 73 variation of condition, you are approving the 19th of February management plan and the terms within that. And if they were to be breached, that could be a matter for enforcement, and that does cover who can go in there. And that comes back to the councillor's point about potentially lower risk.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's really helpful. Thank you. Councillor Hendry. Sorry, was there anything?
No, that's fine. Sorry.
Councillor Hendry.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks for Brian's delivery. Everything the man said, I actually agree with everything. He's got a bang on the button. If we turn this down here today, then by default it goes back to the application before, and he's absolutely right in saying that. It puts us in a very difficult kind of position here, whereby we all know ASI and this is policy driven, and we know that. And as I said, everything Councillor Smedley said is correct. It just pains me, this whole thing, because I want to say no. However, it's difficult beyond difficult, this one. The children aspect is the one that stands out like a sore thumb for me. And just one very short sentence for you. I said to you already, I used to run one of these things in Burnham. One morning we had 4 people come out of a single person room. Okay, it was in the winter. And I just was astonished what was happening. And the lady in the room said, well, they're my friends. It was cold last night, so I brought them in. That just gives you a measure sometimes of some of the people who manage to stay there. You think everything's fine, you're going to 6 or 7 or 8 people staying there, you've got it under control, but you can't.
Can I just say, Councillor Hendry, that not directly relating
I know.
to this, and that is where it comes down to the management.
You're
right?
absolutely
Management plan. It's
You're absolutely
having
correct.
confidence in it or not
Yeah.
is so important. So I really don't want to dilute it with
No,
other
you're right.
experiences.
You're absolutely correct. Everything you're saying, and I stand correct, and I apologise for drifting off the main direction, and I do apologise about that. Anyway, I'm not going to propose either way on this because I feel really uncomfortable, but I just go back for the third time, everything I agree with all Brian Smedley said. Yeah, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not in a position to actually turn this down. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Bolts and then yes, and then Councillor Murphy. Councillor Murphy.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to ask a question, actually. I mean, it strikes me this, I'm very happy with it, of course I am. And the mere fact that it's right next door to a school is an alarm bell in my mind. It's a problem. Especially if there's going to be, the management plan allows for them to be observed through CCTV rather than through on-board staff. Although the person who spoke here in defence of the thing spoke about the management team to be positioned within the house, that is possible. But I feel that at this stage, they should be encouraged to change their management plan to a much tighter security, in which case it may be, I'm asking you if it's possible to have a deferral rather than a cancellation, because we already have the approval for an HMO. We don't want to go back to that, which will leave the thing loose. We need to find a way to say that the management plan, the new management plan as presented, is not secure enough in the area that's in and in the situation it's in. And therefore, I'm sorry, I'm not very accurate on these things, but that's how I sit here can perceive it. That they've actually said we want to make it slightly less because we'll put low security people in, but they can't guarantee that, we think. So we're a bit concerned, and we don't want to push it into another thing like Brian was saying.
So if it's possible to discuss that, or if you can come up with something like that where we say, we don't agree with your management plan as submitted. We suggest that you defer, go back, come back again quickly, and let's look at it. I can only put that forward as a suggestion, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, that's all I've got.
Thank you. I'll take speakers, councillor Smedley, then councillor Bolt, and then officers may like to respond and advise. Thank you.
Okay, I never support deferrals, but I'm minded to on this occasion support them because it allows the key questions that have been raised today with the definite, so I say slight confusion around the table because people don't know how to vote for the best to make this work for everyone. I think the management plan could be re-explained, revisited in line with the concerns that have been raised, and bearing in mind difference in category, how genuine it is between high and low risk. As was explained over here, there's certain categories that seem to be precluded by the management plan, which could be a good thing, but we want that clear. We want that nailed down precisely. A lot of the things have been explained away. You have sex offenders next to school, that kind of thing. But Councillor Hendry, before drifting off into his own experiences, was strongly hinting at what could happen in these places. We don't want to go into that, But I would like to, if Councillor Murphy is suggesting that as a different, I'd second that, to get that management plan reinvestigated with something that came out of it. Well, at the end of the day, we want the residents to feel the happiest solution possible in all this, that we are confident what is decided. So I would second that.
So, councillor Murphy, is that a proposal?
If you can take it as that and put it into good words, I'll happily allow you to do that. I suggest we defer this matter for further consideration and resubmittal.
Yeah, for further,
As a proposal.
and for clarity, you're
Can I also want to site visit as well?
Okay, we have a proposal. I will take you just a moment. Officers.
Well, I think we just need a bit of clarity about why the deferral has been proposed. Is it to go back to the applicant to obtain a more detailed or tightened up management plan? I think that's the thing. It's not to get,
Yes.
so because we need to know as officers exactly what we're looking at. Thank you.
We
Thank you
need
for
to
that.
be confident in what we are
No,
recommending.
that's fine.
When there is doubts, I think for all of us around this room at the moment.
The concern is the risk nature and the level of cover. That's all there is.
And a site visit was also. No, that doesn't seem to be finding favour. Okay. I'll go to councillor Bolt next.
Yeah, thank you. I think the deferral's a very good idea. And in fact, the police comments are saying the same thing. They don't have enough information and have requested the information. I can't see it any clearer than that. It's in the papers.
Councillor Filmer.
If you have to pull that, well, but I think it's useful to the applicants being sat in the room. They've heard the issues that they've
Yeah.
raised, and they know the sort of issues that we're looking for that clarity on.
Yeah. Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify as well, I think there's quite an important point in terms of the speed of reaction. So the CCTV coverage and the team member that's going to come out and what sort of time limits will be set in terms of when somebody will react to something happening in the property. So that comes under level of cover, I suppose, but I think the timing is also something we need to be clear about in that.
Obviously made a big impact at the time.
I didn't want to miss anybody, and I've got my head going that way, so. So we have a proposal to defer because of concerns around the management plan tightening up, so that we are absolutely sure when it comes back for recommendation what we are actually approving or not. That has been seconded. Can I just check with officers that that is enough detail for the referral at this point? Yeah, okay. So all in favour of a deferral, please show. And that is unanimous. Thank you, members. That was a good debate on a difficult subject. So thank you. Right, would members like 5 minutes to put right, and then let's just go to the final item, which is the appeals. And I know the officer wants to make a few comments about the appeal section.
I'm sorry, I was so mean as well.
We were finding a way, yeah. Right.
Oh, we seem to have lost several members now, but anyway, we will proceed because these aren't for decision. It's reports for notes or comments. And we go through the final item on the agenda, and that is appeal reports, pages 45 to 50. Officers, would you like to take us through those, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll just give a very brief update, and obviously if there are any questions following this, but there were 2 appeals this time. First, the Rookery Manor, Edingworth in Westminster. Members may recall this one. Obviously I don't because I wasn't here, but it was a committee matter. It related to the conversion of a redundant single-storey building that had formerly been used for weddings and other events to provide 9 self-contained apartments. The inspector gave a very comprehensive response, but considered that actually the proposals would accord with policies when the NPPF guidance on the reuse of rural buildings is taken into account. And members may recall that when the NPPF first came in 2012, before that there were quite strict guidelines on the rural buildings and which ones could be converted. In 2012, NPPF sort of opened up the market, as it were, in that respect. The inspector felt that, subject to appropriate conditions to control things like materials and details, the conversion of this building should not harm the character and appearance of Edingworth. Having said that, in allowing the appeal, the inspector did impose a condition requiring the applicant to submit a scheme for an affordable housing contribution to Somerset Council for our agreement before any development commences. They had to forward a unilateral undertaking with the appeal, and now it's a requirement under this appeal approval for them to submit details of what contribution they're going to make towards affordable housing. That will be in the form of an agreement under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. And as I say, they're not allowed to undertake any development until that has been agreed and secured. There are also conditions, given the sensitive nature of the site, there are also conditions requiring both soft and hard landscaping schemes to be submitted and agreed, together with a requirement for flood risk mitigation measures to be carried out. Now, whilst the appeal decision doesn't actually mention the tilted balance or the 5-year land supply position, obviously it's not specifically mentioning that, but the lack of a 5-year housing land supply would now apply also to this development of 9 houses. So the only reason I'm mentioning that is because I think we're going to see more and more of that being mentioned in future appeal decisions. I think at the end of the day, it was a reasonably subjective matter, and so there's no implied criticism. It was one that members felt that the detail wasn't acceptable and refused it. But I don't think it's one where I'd say there's lessons to be learned. Other than that point about the 5-year land supply, and you'll rely on officers to be, making that point. Going forward. Yeah.
You're feeling emotional?
It's my return to Somerset after 30 years. So it's my return to Somerset after 30 years. So very emotional. Sorry. That was all I want to say on that appeal, but I'm happy to take questions.
Just welcome.
I just wanted to ask, was that at a cost to us?
No, there was no cost award in this case.
They managed to get it over already.
Sorry, just a comment really on the fact that they've got Rookery Manor over the line on rural building, the chalet. But that's just a comment on from my point of view.
Okay, would you like to take us through the further reports? Any comments?
Very happy to, and thank you so much for them. The second appeal relates to land west of White House, Rhine. Not sure what a Rhine is.
It's
so
the
I'm
Rhine, it's stream.
Sorry, White House Rhine, Paulet. And it was a retrospective application, so it was a proposed change of use of land and conversion of a wooden boat for a community interest project, together with a toilet block and ramp. The appeal was dismissed. The inspector concluded that the benefits of the proposals would be considerable in terms of supporting a variety of community groups, including disabled persons, and the inspector gave great weight to this. Furthermore, the inspector attributed some limited weight to the fact that proposals could open up the coastal path to people with disabilities, and that the toilet block would be available to members of the public to use during hours of operation, so members of the public using the coastal path. And so weight was attached to that in the planning balance. However, when applying that balance, the inspector found it to be an unsustainable location, and that the development does or would harm the character and appearance of the area. In addition, the inspector felt there was inadequate information on flood risk, drainage, and the impact potentially on designated sites. And overall, whilst it was a balanced one, the inspector felt that the benefits would not outweigh the harms, and the appeal was therefore dismissed. I was just going to say, as this is a retrospective development, we will need to discuss with the enforcement team what action, if any, may be expedient in the public interest. I don't know enough about the case to give you any reassurance about what our actions will be, but I will discuss with Dawn and her enforcement team. Thank you.
Thank you. Next report is planning appeals received, page 47. Any comments on those? Just for note. And finally, enforcement appeals received. Any comments on those? And that brings us to the end of the agenda. But I have been asked by Councillor Filmer, he did raise a question at the beginning of the committee. Would you like to just?
Yeah, which is in the first agenda item 5, question about why we seem to have moved registration date from the report, because again, it might be interpreted that we're trying not to show how long things have been in the system. And then the question was also about the reason for referral. The reason just seems to be saying our policy is subjective, therefore it should come to committee. Well, we could all say that about various policies within the plan. And equally, the second application was because there were a large number of people commenting on it. I think there were 149, which is a large number of people. But are we now saying anything that has over 100 people comment on it is in effect a reason for us to refer it to committee? Because that generally, we said to people, it's not a numbers game. If we give the impression it is a numbers game, we might find even more letters coming in because people will try and play that game.
Do you want to take them? I can make some comments as well.
Well, just very briefly, unfortunately, being second week here, I'm not sufficiently au fait with the scheme of delegation at this stage, I'm afraid, to sort of pass comment on that. I mean, it is a significant amount of objections. It may be that was just decided at management level that actually it was that level of public interest that it should be debated, but we will come back to you separately, Councillor Filmer, if that's okay on that. In terms of the template, obviously now that is the standardised Sunset template, so we're applying it across all 4 areas, and I think it's been so it's not anything suspicious or untoward, but that's the template. But I will certainly pass back your feedback to Alison Plum Cooper.
The templates are being sort of unified around the county, aren't they? So they're all of the same. And I guess in terms of your other question, certainly in terms of the second application today, it could have been, we have our weekly referral meeting, but for openness and transparency, that's always a factor which we weigh against the benefits of agree with the officers at the planning referral stage.
Yeah, if I could just on the template, I totally agree with us coming to a template that's unified, but I don't know whether members have been even asked about what the template means and why things have changed. It may have been run past the chairs and vice chairs and they've said, yeah, we can take the date off, but as I say, the impression one could take from that is we're simply trying to cover up the fact that things have been in the system a long time.
I think, do you want to respond?
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally understand the point you're making. I don't disagree at all. And, you know, in the interest of transparency, I'm sure that's, I would be very surprised if it was a deliberate attempt to do that. And I'll discuss it with the head of planning, Alison Bon Cooper, to see if the template can be tweaked. I'm sure it's not fixed in stone. I have no problem with that at all. You know, I'm one for openness and transparency in that government. So thank you.
Can I just say, we're sort of veering off slightly, but I did allow that because the question was asked at the start of the meeting. Unless it's directly relating to that, I'm going to close the meeting now and then we'll have a informal. Okay, Councillor Slocum.
I just wanted to say that I support what Councillor Bob's saying, and I just wanted to say that could we also know about the numbers? Because do you know what, if it means that we are going to bring things to committee because there is a massive number involved, and we'll all bring his wife and his mother in. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what it could turn to. So I think it's important for us all to understand that, please.
Yeah, point, notes taken, thank you. And that being all the business this afternoon, I now conclude the meeting and thank you for all your comments and for attending.
Chairman, 2 lines. 2 lines.
I but don't go because